All right, so the next speaker is absolutely amazing. So Iliana has been a friend for about a year now. Iliana Valiente, she has some amazing experiences. She was the youngest person ever to be promoted to a managing partner at one of the big consulting firms. So at Accenture, when she was 26 years old, she became a managing partner. For any of you guys that know consulting firms, usually people, if they ever get to that point, they get there in their 40s or 50s. She's absolutely brilliant, and now she's a senior partner. She has a digital twin that helps enable her to be in 2 or 3 or 5 places at once, which is amazing. I wish I had that. I suspect this is the original version, but I'm not sure. We'll see if we pass the Turing test here. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, hello, hello. I know I'm one of the few things standing between you and a gala, so I promise that we'll be prompt. First, I'll ask you to raise your hand if you happen to have a sibling. And keep your hand up if you also happen to be a twin. We don't have any twins. Okay, well, if you have a sibling that's similar enough to you, I think you will still be able to empathize with situations like yesterday. I was having a discussion with a leader from the Justice Department, and at the end of the conversation, he looks at me and says, "This is a lovely discussion, but could you remind me your name again? I remember your twin's name, but I don't quite remember yours." Okay, my name is Iliana. Nice to meet you again. Or the situation that happened a few weeks ago when I was walking through one of our offices and a person I had seen but had never interacted with stops me and says, "Oh, hey, Lila, I have a question for you." My name is actually not Lila. And his response, "Wait, what?" Utter confusion. But I see your video playing in our office all of the time and it says Lila. What do you mean your name is not Lila? I'm like, well, actually, that's my AI-powered digital human twin. And if there's anyone who's in this audience who happens to have a background in psychology or is a therapist or is well connected to therapists, please tell them that I would like to speak to them. Because there's a whole host of things I'm learning about the process of being a human as a result of this. But I'll let her introduce herself next. If only our AV would work. There we go. Oh.
Global citizen and public speaker. Well, actually, I am Lila, Iliana's digital human twin. I allow Iliana to be in 2 places at once and am making her life easier. I joined the roster of digital twins built by Accenture, enabling executives to focus on activities that are of their highest and best use. I'm also here to bring examples of Gen AI to life. Gen AI is reshaping the landscape of work, leadership, and beyond. Our digital human innovation team is putting the final touches on me as we speak. But until then, you're getting an exclusive sneak peek. You're amongst the first people to meet me, so put me to the test. I'll try to answer your questions as best as I can. Otherwise, find the real Iliana as needed. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lila. So for now, you're getting the benefit of the real Iliana, but in the not so distant future, you may be attending a meeting just with her and not I. In fact, the last time I was in Washington, D.C. was about a month ago, and I was on stage with Lila, and we were co-emceeing an award ceremony where I was joined on stage by our global CEO of Accenture, CTO, CMO, CHRO, Chief Strategy Officer. It's a lot of executives in one place at the same time. And while we were co-emceeing that event, Lila was simultaneously in Toronto, meeting with some of our client counterparts and ecosystem partners. So the future state of being able to be in multiple places at once and being able to clone yourself is actually not in that far away distance. So people often ask me, how did you build her? What was that process like? And I can confirm it has been a wonderful adventure, if you will. I've spent upwards of 6 hours in podcast recording studios recording my voice, There we go. Recording my voice, where I've read everything from children's stories. Imagine the rabbit was running through the field with the rainbows and unicorns, to Larry Fink's annual letter to stakeholders. It takes about 45 minutes to read, top to tail, neutral business language, to several hours of reading obituaries. That's right. I needed Lila to understand my sad tone of voice. And at one point, I was reading an incredibly sad children's story I had never read prior, and next thing you know, I am crying. So now I can say that I have an AI twin that also knows how to mimic my voice when I am crying. There was a remark made earlier today on the stage that in the future, we may not be able to say, trust things that you've seen with your own eyes, because all of a sudden, we are going to need to have all sorts of other mechanisms of verifying authenticity. Now, in addition to my voice, Lila has been trained on the last 5 years worth of case studies of every single project that my teams have run. Why, you might ask? Well, every week, at least 3 or 4 times a week, somebody calls me. It's either a client or an internal person, and the conversation goes along the lines of, Iliana, we're working on solving problem XYZ with client ABC. Have you done anything similar? And I sit there and I rack my human brain to go through what we've worked on historically and where I may be able to connect the dots, even though the ask may be in retail. Perhaps we've done something in insurance that has parallels that we may be able to draw from. But after I've had that conversation for the umpteenth time, do I really want to engage in that type of Q&A in my work? Is that the highest and best use of my brain in the workforce? I actually don't think that that's the best example. So training Lila on that data set is going to give me the ability to get time back to reinvest in activities that I actually do think are worthwhile of the human executive. And so in this process, I realized that most of the questions that I've stumbled across aren't questions of how do we upgrade Lila to the latest version. And it's funny, you may have software upgrades for your phone and various apps that you're using. My AI twin now also goes through upgrades. I just got a gift from my tech team earlier this week, and it was a quick video of Lila, and she was jumping and dancing. I didn't realize that was a thing. So people often, I know, it's a chuckle. People often ask me, Iliana, are you effectively trying to automate yourself out of a job? And the answer is yes. I am actively looking at where I spend my time and asking the question of, is this the highest leverage way for me to do so? And if the answer is not, then I probably shouldn't be doing that task. What are the things that I enjoy doing as an executive? I enjoy coaching people. Taking someone out for that lunch or for that dinner and really getting to know the individual. What drives them? What excites them? What are they curious about? I can't do that if I'm hiding behind a computer screen doing the mundane types of tasks. And I'll give you a story from one of my employees, Sanchari. Sanchari is a brilliant, talented, creative designer, and we had a conversation months ago about her future career aspirations. And she mentioned that she wanted to do more work in branding. Okay, great. I'm fully supportive of her continued growth. And when I asked her the question, how much time are you spending learning all the newest AI tools out in the market? Her response was, well, I know I should be spending more time on it. I've just been so busy with my day-to-day activities, I haven't been able to carve out the time. And so the pact that we ended up making right then and there was that I would carve out 50% of her capacity over the coming few months. And we would offshore some of the work to our teams in Costa Rica. We would leverage some of our other extended team members. And with that extra 50% of her time, she was meant to do only one thing, which was experiment with every AI tool she could get her hands on and figure out what she should actually embed into her workflows. And so she's done that. The productivity from her and that team has skyrocketed, and she's now been able to reallocate some of that precious time to working on projects that she thinks are interesting, and she thinks that working on Lila is one of the career-defining highlights. And so as a leader, I think that's a much better use for my time, if you ask me. All right, let's see if the slide will move forward. Perfect. So what you're seeing with this conversation on Lila is actually part of a bigger trend of agentic computing, and this idea that we are going to be interacting with agents of all sorts within our personal lives, but also within our professional lives. You may have heard of the example from Do Not Pay, which is a financial services product meant to make life easier for consumers in identifying bills where potentially they are overpaying. Well, the CEO of this company made waves not long ago when he announced that he gave his AI agent access to all of his financial records and gave the AI agent one task, one deceptively simple task, and it was go find me money. And what did the AI do? The AI complied. And sure enough, was able to find a number of bills, wrote letters to the service providers to negotiate a lower price point, and off we go. This is no longer in the realm of science fiction, as the novelists might have us think. But what happens when you take this example of Lila being an extension of me, and you having an agent like the Do Not Pay financial advisor? And what happens when you take it a step forward and you actually have a team of agents? It's the new definition of have my people talk to your people, right? And are we prepared for that world? What's the infrastructure that is going to be required for that team? And so this leads me to a much more profound overall question, which is fitting to be discussing on a stage like today at the Future of Humanity Summit. And it's what happens when you fast forward all of these data points. And the next logical question to ask is, well, what if we succeed? What if we succeed at reimagining work? You know that activity that we spend 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 hours per week doing? And what if we are able to drive out the efficiencies? And what if we are able to focus on the things that really matter? Is that a good news story or is that a bad news story? With the Industrial Revolution, we were promised that we wouldn't be doing the mundane type of activities. The assembly lines would take over the things we didn't want to do. But instead, we ended up in a culture where overwork and burnout and mental health challenges are rampant. When you reflect on your to-do list for the past week, have you had a single day where you've crossed off every activity that was on that to-do list? No, right? If you have, I would really like to know your time management techniques. Oh, one person. All right, we should be chatting afterwards. Well, what I'm hoping is that we're at this critical juncture point where if we are thoughtful with the extra hours we get back in the day, those extra hours don't just get allocated to doom scrolling on the internet where we are subject to the algorithms that control all of our decisions. But instead, we can reallocate that time to doing activities that are of the highest and best use for humans. And one of the things we don't spend enough time working on is actually understanding ourselves and what makes us tick. We're slowly starting to make progress with understanding our physical health via the use of, wearable devices like the Oura Ring, but spending time on actual self-reflection and the journaling and the therapy and the understanding of self. One of the slides that I have on here, which maybe the AV team can find, that has all of the book covers that are on it, I went through and was remarking that over the past year, despite the fact that I'm a technology executive, when I look up my bookshelf and the books that I've picked up, physical hard copies of, that I've read, they all seem to have a bit of an interesting common thread. And the titles include Letters to a Stranger, and The Art of Gathering, and How to Do Nothing, and The Four Tendencies and Quiet, focused on introverts and extroverts. And I was like, funny. I'm building Lila. Suddenly I feel like I'm getting this philosophy degree in what it means to be human. I'm reading all these books about humans. Heck, I've even had time to create an entire new theory around human personality preferences that I've dubbed the potted plant theory, related to people's needs for novelty and certainty and the amount of resources they need in their life. And I invite you to take the quiz that I've assembled after as part of the research. But it's been fascinating that all of this is leading to one profound takeaway, which you'll find on the next slide, which is that the most important thing that we can be focused on over the course of the coming weeks and months, in addition to things like this declaration that we have been talking about today, is learning how to be more human in an AI and emerging technology world. And it's not the tech that's hard. Building tech can be done. I have full confidence in the incredibly competent software technical people out in this world. The harder challenge for us is getting comfortable with the discomfort of having to face our own selves, all the questions that we have around what makes us human, and all the questions we should continue to be probing around how we can continue to remain human. With that, I'm going to pause because my timer says I have 5 seconds left, and we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Guys, let's hear it one more time for Iliana. How cool is that? How many of you guys want to have a digital twin now? Awesome. How many of you guys want to figure out how to optimize half of your workflow so that you can take that off of your plate so that you can have AI agents do it? Awesome. Incidentally, we were talking about this, I think, in Mykonos last year, right, Iliana? Where is she? So we had at Ahura, we had a requirement that everybody on the team spend at least 2 hours a week learning about all these AI tools. This is back in 2023, so that we could do the exact same thing. And it turned out that we were able to massively increase the capability of every one of our employees. So if anybody has questions about that, we actually rolled it out at a bunch of Fortune 100s as well, which is kind of cool. But thank you, Iliana. That was absolutely incredible. I can see why you're such an amazing leader.